Hey everybody, it's Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser, where I go on a weekend cruise just about every weekend, and thought I would take a quick moment just to share who is the Weekend Cruiser. How did I get to where I cruise just about every weekend? So originally, I am from Eastern North Carolina, so you may hear me throw out some y'alls and some fixins to do something. I may use some of that terminology, but after college in North Carolina, I moved up to Boston and stayed there for 11 years. So you may also hear me drop some ahs every now and again when I am speaking with folks. But it's in Boston where, in that very cold climate, that I learned the value of going on cruises. So my first cruise was with the Carnival Fantasy in 2009. We decided to take a long weekend and head down to New Orleans, where that ship was doing, I believe it was a 4-night run to Cozumel and back. So that was my first experience with cruising. I then did not cruise again until 2015 when some friends of mine, came knocking and said, hey, let's go on a Royal cruise. They were big Royal fans. I think they were already Diamond Plus members at the time. And they said, let's try out the Liberty of the Seas in a 5-night sailing. And this is where something just clicked with going on cruises. I really enjoyed my time on the ship with them and with sailing with Royal Caribbean. From there, I knew it was something that I liked and I wanted to do it again. And it had always been my father's dream to go to Alaska. So for Christmas of 2016, I gave him the Christmas gift of going on my next cruise and his, not first cruise, but it's been a long time for him, over to Alaska. And we sailed on the Explorer of the Seas with Royal Caribbean out of Alaska. And this is where I think that I truly got hooked, is when I realized I could see the world and how beautiful everything was very quickly. I could go to many different ports, many different stops on one vacation, but always have a home ship to come back to. From there, I really wanted to be back on a cruise ship after going to Alaska, and I booked my first solo cruise. I couldn't find anybody to go with me, and the first time that I did that, it was a little bit scary. But I booked the Empress of the Seas, the smallest ship in Royal Caribbean's fleet at the time, and went on my initial first solo sailing. And I must tell you, once I realized that I could cruise by myself and that I enjoyed that experience tremendously, I was absolutely starting to cruise as frequently, as often as I can. So it really happened quick where I started cruising very, very frequently. From there, I still lived in Boston, and so I started traveling down to Florida and other locations to go on cruises, but my main strategy was, number one, not to use a lot of money, and number two, not to use a lot of vacation days. That was something that, I do have a full-time job that I enjoy, that I want to keep, and so I didn't use that many vacation days. So I was flying down, and I started doing the weekend sailings back on the Enchantment of the Seas when it was a small ship doing the 3-night runs. I would then stay in Florida for another few days. And then on Thursday, I would board the Empress of the Seas, which at the time was doing a 4-night run to Key West on Friday. And luckily for us, we had an office in Key West. And so I would literally, suit up. I would put on a suit first thing in the morning when we got to Key West. I would walk off and go into an office to work in Key West. And so I just picked up 7 nights at sea with no vacation time, and these cruises were going for a very cheap amount at that time. So that was really how I started going very, very frequently, was flying down for these, 10-night blocks, if you will, not using any vacation time, but still getting 7 nights at sea. I've also really stuck with Royal Caribbean. I get a lot of questions on, do I take other cruise lines? I am not opposed to taking other cruise lines, but Royal has been really good to me, and it's kind of, I compare it to somebody who stays with one airline carrier, if you will. And one of the biggest advantages to that is, number one, I'm doing really good in their loyalty program with the Crown and Anchor Society. Number two, if something goes wrong, I know how to fix it. I know the policies, I know who to call, and it doesn't stress me out as much because I know what the procedures are going to be. I also like staying with one cruise line because I find a lot of other people do that. Specifically on the weekend sailings, I'm constantly running into people all the time. I do go by myself a fair bit, and everybody's like, oh, are you alone? Well, I do go on the sailing by myself, but I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there just like me who love going on these cruises, and they stay with the same cruise lines for the most part, and so I get to see them over and over. So I have at this point, probably just as many friends on the cruise ships as I do on land. So even though I may go by myself, I constantly know people, have dinner with people. It is a truly fantastic experience. And that includes the crew, I would say. So I can go to just about any ship in the fleet at this point, and I'm going to be greeted with, welcome, Mr. Brandon. Welcome, Mr. Smith. They're going to know who I am. They recognize me. We've worked together in the past. It's a really comforting experience to know and see faces that you recognize. I also treat the room a little bit like my second home. So I know where my pants go. I know where I'm hanging things up. I know how I organize my toiletries in the bathroom, what side of the bed I sleep on. All those things, it makes it feel like it is my second home and that I've consistently had a similar experience. It may be in different places throughout the world, but I've had that similar experience. So fast forward to today. Since 2015, I have done 82 total cruises. So I've done that one on Carnival, I've done one on Disney, and all the rest have been with Royal Caribbean. So with that, I'm the weekend cruiser. So how many of those have been weekend sailings? 41, almost half of those have been a 3-night sailing. I have only done, this is an interesting fact to me, I have only done 11 7-night sailings and 5 sailings that are 8 nights or higher. So I haven't done the traditional sailing that is out there. I've done several of those, but not like I've really specialized in the weekend sailing. Overall, I've been to Coco Cay 46 times, and interestingly enough, I've actually been to exactly 46 different ports at this point, which comprise about 30 different countries that I visited with Royal Caribbean and with the cruise lines. So what's ahead for 2022? So a lot of people have reached out and said, hey, what's your cruise schedule like? We'd love to grab a drink together, and I would love that as well. Oftentimes, you're going to be able to find me this year on the Freedom of the Seas. So that is the 3-night ship sailing from Miami, which is the closest to my house. It also requires that I don't need any vacation time in order to go on the ship, so I book that a good bit of time. From there, I've got a few longer cruises, so when I actually do use my vacation days, I love getting out of the Caribbean and going to Europe or somewhere else. So I will be doing an Alaska sailing on the Serenade of the Seas. I'm going to be doing the Vision of the Seas in the Mediterranean, my first Mediterranean cruise. And I also have a fantastic itinerary booked with some of my friends to go over to Asia. So we're going to try out the Celebrity Solstice for 11 nights, switch over to the Quantum of the Seas back to Royal Caribbean, and then we're going to explore the mainland of China. So I'm going to do a non-cruise portion of this vacation as well. But super excited for what 2022 has to offer. All right, everybody, this is Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser, hoping to see you on a weekend cruise soon.